Next up, we would now like to invite Ms. Liu Yimei to present on the trends of assessment. Ms. Liu Yimei joined the DAS in 2007 and she has recently completed the Master of Arts Applied Psychology from the National Institute of Education. In addition to her interest in conducting assessments as part of an investigation process for learning difficulties, she is also involved in the training and supervision of new psychologists at the DAS. She obtained an advanced diploma in Chinese language teaching from the KLC International Institute and participated in the initial development of the Chinese program at the DAS. So let us put our hands together for Ms. Liu Yimei.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yimei and I'm a registered psychologist working at the Dyslexia Association of Singapore. I'm pleased to be here today to be sharing with you some of the observed trends in assessments and in the referrals that we conduct at the DAS. The DAS has been offering intervention services to individuals with dyslexia for over 20 years. The mission statement of helping dyslexic people achieve goes beyond just intervention. In the last 15 years, the DAS had also developed a team of specialist psychologists who focus on assessing individuals for diagnosis and education placement. Each year, the DAS psychologists assess hundreds of children and provide educational placement or strategies to help these children further their strengths and improve their weaknesses. Given the vast number of students who are seen by the DAS psychologists, the objectives of these sessions are twofold. First, to provide an overview of assessment services at the DAS MOE-aided DAS Literacy Programme, or otherwise known as the DAS MAP, and also to share with you some trends that have been identified through the assessments and referrals that we read at the DAS. The understanding of the implications of these trends provide a context to the development of the DAS psychological services in order to provide needed and valued psychoeducational assessment services. In a very simple overview, this shows the workflow at our admissions service. We receive applications to the DAS MAP. Some of these applications were processed for placement at the DAS MAP program, while others for assessment. Once they are assessed, they may be placed in our MAP classes for intervention, or they may be referred on for either intervention or either evaluation. In financial year 2016 and 17, we processed a total of 1,650 applications. About 66% of these referrals continue with assessments at the DAS as they came in without any knowledge of difficulties or whether they have any other needs. Some of them are also returning students coming through to us for a review and an update of their learning difficulties. About 33% of these students were placed in our classes, and 1% of them were referred out for other evaluations. The purpose of psychological assessments at the DAS MAP, they are usually referred because they have difficulties in one or more areas in school. But because of the nature of the model of practice in the DAS, where the psychoeducational service was initially set up as a specialist assessment service to diagnose for dyslexia, so that the children can access the DAS educational services, we also get predominantly referrals for literacy difficulties. Now, these students are referred to the DAS for purposes of diagnosis and or review of their current profiles, as well as to ascertain their suitability for assessed arrangements during examinations. If the students are found to have dyslexia, they would be referred for literacy intervention, typically at the DAS MAP program, and if there are possibilities of co-occurring difficulties, or if there's insufficient evidence for dyslexia, then the DAS psychologist will introduce possible reasons and refer them on for other testing by other professionals, or recommend other home or school strategies. The process of psychoeducational assessment at the DAS MAP is a systematic process. It helps us to find out about a student's strengths and needs, as well as interactions with the environment. With behavioral, emotional, and medical issues at the back of our minds, we attempt to make hypotheses and predictions in order to understand their learning and developmental concerns. As part of the process of the assessment at the DAS MAP, we gather information through interviews with parents and other caregivers, so some of these students may not be in a home environment, as well as obtaining feedback from teachers and other educators working with the students, for example, their tutors or their enrichment centers teachers. This allows us to obtain information regarding the students from the home environment where learning is likely to be more individual-based and more informal, as well as in a school environment where learning is likely to be more group-based and more formal. We also conduct testing which comprise of the assessing of their cognitive or their IQ skills, their literacy skills, as well as their phonological processing skills. So with all of this, we will also be able to make observations of the students' test-taking behavior when they are with us for an extended period of time. We see their approaches to challenges, their responses to praise and encouragement, as well as their responses to failure and ability to sustain attention. So with all of this information, we view them in context of their background, their instruction and intervention received, and we integrate this information to draw conclusions as well as to make certain recommendations. With these assessments being done, the DAS psychologists will then make decisions regarding the student's educational planning, for example, the most suitable intervention and placement for the student, or perhaps the need for further assessments or intervention beyond literacy, as well as suitable assess arrangements during examinations. So with this, having given a brief overview of assessment services, and keeping in mind that we have very often been doing intervention as well as assessment with literacy at the back of our mind, we now want to look at some trends in assessments, as well as the referrals that we have received at the DAS, and see what implications this has for our DAS services. Before we go into the statistics, I think it is important for us to consider some factors that affect psychoeducational assessment. The psychoeducational assessment practice that we have come to understand today is really a product of multiple series of influence that include social policy and societal goals of education, as well as the nature of curriculum and developing understanding of various theories of mind and learning. These different factors are often changing as continuing research informs practice. The psychoeducational assessment process that we understand today also reflects the interest of modern cognitive theory in the process of learning and knowing in a given individual. Now, if we look at this graph, we would see that these are the applications over the years from 2013 to 2016. Now, with some history, when the DAS first received students in 1993, there were only 12 students. And when DAS first started the assessment services in 2003, 10 years later, enrollment into DAS, regardless for intervention or assessment, stood at about 500 students. However, if we look at these recent statistics, then in the past 4 years, DAS has seen new applications coming through to us, averaging at about 802 per year. These new applications include students who may not have had assessment for their learning needs before, and they do not include students who were previously known to us, such as our ex-students or our current students. So this is a very good statistics to show that with increased awareness of dyslexia as well as with learning needs, that more children are coming forward. Together with the number of students referred to us by the Ministry of Education, MOE Singapore, each year the enrollment into DAS averages at about 1,000. This increase in referral for intervention and assessment is likely a result of increased awareness and acceptance of dyslexia. From 1996, DAS had organized awareness talks, conferences, and seminars for parents and educators to raise their understanding and knowledge of dyslexia. Together with assistance rolled out by the Ministry of Education, this brings about greater awareness for parents to bring forth their children for psychoeducational assessments and subsequently intervention. Now, just some brief overview of assistance being introduced to schools. In the primary schools, the Learning Support Programme, which is an early intervention program provided for primary 1 and 2 students, it aims at providing learning support to pupils who enters primary 1 and 2 with weak English language and literacy skills, so that these pupils can better access learning in the regular classroom. Now, if you remember Dr. Aljuni's slide, then there was a pyramid, and going upwards would be the school-based dyslexia remediation program, which in 2016 was made available to all primary schools. The SDR is a specialized intervention program that helps students in primary 3 and 4 with dyslexia to overcome their difficulties in reading and spelling. Offering these programs at the primary school had increased the understanding of the need for intervention for individuals in Singapore. Having more students receive intervention for dyslexia also suggests that more are coming forward for psychoeducational assessments. With this, of course, when we do our assessments, we also need to keep in mind that children are assessing intervention at a younger age. Also, this leads us to think about intervention at the preschool age to create better school readiness for students. In 2007, MOE introduced a framework to enhance readiness of preschool children through a three-pronged approach, one of which is the Focused Language Assistance in Reading FLAIR program, which has since benefited more than 21,000 children. It serves to identify children who have a weak foundation and who do not have English as a common language at home. In 2017, 10 years later, the FLAIR program is being spread out to more than 50 not-for-profit centers. And in 2012, the Development Support Program, the DSP, was piloted and launched in 2013. Supported by the Ministry of Social and Family Development, it aims to provide help to children with mild developmental delays, such as in learning support and therapy intervention. In 2015, about 1,200 children were enrolled in the program. With these initiatives put forth by the ministry, we begin to see the impact it has on the receptiveness of assessment and intervention. If we look at this slide, these are the numbers of students whom we have put through for placement in the DAS classes, where the students will receive intervention. These students who were placed in our classes would have been assessed, would have gone through a psychoeducational assessment. We see that there is still a small portion of secondary school students coming through for intervention, but the main bulk being primary school students. While this seems to suggest that these secondary school students might have had compensated for their difficulties, but we are also keenly aware that there might still be a lack of awareness in the secondary school students. And the DAS is also looking into providing such awareness services to the secondary school students. Now we see that there's a significant increase in referrals for intervention in 2016 for primary 1 and 2, and one of the possibilities could be due to increased awareness and receptiveness through the preschool initiatives by the ministries and at the DAS. A dip in the P3 and 4 numbers could likely be due to the increased provision of help for the students in this grade level in the mainstream schools. Similarly, with schools being able to provide some form of intervention from primary 1 to 4, we see that applications from MOE for placement in DAS intervention classes dipped for this age group, while applications for P5 and 6 had increased. It shows a reflection of good collaboration between the ministries, local schools, and organizations providing specialized help. It also shows that we are beginning to see students after they have received some kind of intervention. Now, let's turn our eyes to the preschool. The DAS preschool program offers literacy services to preschoolers who present with literacy difficulties. So they are accepted into our classes without having a need for diagnosis. Now we see that from information from 2014 to 16, that we have an average of 300 preschool students per year, and about 150 to 160 of these preschool students come through to us at the end of their K2 year for an assessment to determine their learning needs. These preschool students will have received at least 6 months of intervention and must be at least 6 years old. Of those assessments that we conduct, about 65% of these students are indeed found to have dyslexia and are recommended to continue with intervention in our DAS MAP classes. So we do see that early intervention helps these children, but they continue to need help and will continue to benefit from intervention in our school age classes. Of those who are not diagnosed with dyslexia, they may present with language difficulties or are from English as second language families, where more language intervention or language exposure may be necessary before they are reassessed. There are also a number of students that present with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, motor difficulties or emotional difficulties who may benefit from intervention in those primary areas of concerns before they are reassessed. Nonetheless, amongst those who have been diagnosed with dyslexia, we have also found that they present with co-occurring difficulties, most commonly in areas where they have difficulties in being distracted and being active, as well as in having some speech or language difficulties. This would also require some form of language intervention or further assessment for possible ADHD. Information from our school age assessment also show similar results. Tracking the assessment results over 3 years, we find that among those whom we have diagnosed with dyslexia, that the two most common difficulties or the two most common co-occurring difficulties are also those presenting with difficulties with attending, showing distractibility and being active, as well as presenting difficulties in aspects of speech, language, and articulation. This will require further evaluation for ADHD and language difficulties. Also, after categorizing the other co-occurring difficulties that we observe, as well as we gather information from, we find that our students present with motor issues requiring an occupational therapist intervention, as well as difficulties coping with their emotions, which was also previously mentioned in our keynote speech, and issues with confidence behavior. We also have a small percentage of students who show traits of ASD, but are similarly diagnosed with dyslexia. The complex needs of our students can also be seen through our profiling of our students through the banding exercise. The banding is used to help match the students' learning needs with the level of teaching within the MAP curriculum and adjusted as the student progresses through the MAP curriculum. Interestingly, there is a majority profile of Band A type learners, which covers emergent literacy skills with co-occurring weak language or cognitive abilities. These students need support in boosting their listening and speaking skills while improving on their literacy foundations. Band B, on the other hand, which are profiles that we typically consider as being dyslexic profiles, are not as much as in our Band A, but they cover functional literacy skills, and the students are likely to have fairly developed language skills. So in the last two slides, we see that these students with literacy difficulties are coming through to us with a dyslexia plus. So they come to us with more than just literacy difficulties. They also present with attention difficulties, language difficulties, emotion difficulties, and motor skills difficulties. In conclusion, given the trends that we have seen, these points summarize the main points for today. First, early intervention is important, and we have seen how increased awareness and support provided at the preschool and lower primary levels have allowed students to receive timely support. Hence, the DAS would need to continue to provide early intervention so as to support these children. Second, we see more and more children coming in with co-occurring difficulties, and this means that our DAS educational therapies would also have to be equipped in order to manage more complex difficulties. At the same time, given the increasing need for assessment of difficulties that may go beyond dyslexia, the DAS is also expanding its assessment services to include the assessment of other specific learning difficulties. Through this, we hope to also provide a one-stop service for our students with dyslexia who present with other co-occurring difficulties, as well as to provide services to other individuals who may find difficulties coping in school. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liu Yimei, for your sharing on assessments and the importance of early intervention. Now, we'd like to invite Ms. Fedi again to present a token of appreciation to our speaker.